Hey everybody, it's Tommy here. I'm just recording another voice memo in my car as I am driving home from work, and I just had some clarity on a subject that I think is important and something that is fun for me to talk about. So I will talk about it now, and if it's of interest to you, great. If not, then again, you can just simply ignore this. So the subject that I want to talk about is about staying in alignment. Um, One of the things that I try to do is I generally, um, as someone who has undergone several awakening experiences, and is very clear on who I am, and that divinity and love and light is my true nature. Um, my only real goals in life now, as a result of the spiritual experiences that I've had, are really to stay in alignment with Source, or who I really am, or my higher self, or my greater self, or whatever you want to call it, and to be in service of humanity, and to spread peace and love and light and all that wonderful stuff to the world. And so, again, in terms of being in alignment, what does that really mean? And what does that mean to anybody who is listening to this and who may or may not be awakened? And the metaphor that really popped into my head is that, when you think about alignment, at least I do, I think about, because I drive a lot, I think about my wheels being in alignment. And, when you're driving, and your wheels are in alignment, you don't think about the wheels being in alignment because they are in alignment. But if you happen to hit a pothole, and that throws your wheels out of alignment, um, it doesn't affect your ability so much to get where you're going. But it does make the ride a little bit rougher. So in terms of uh, our own spiritual growth, what I like to remind everybody is that we're all going to end up in the same place anyway, because there's only one ultimate truth. And so how you get there is entirely up to you. The path that you take is simply faster or slower than another path. All paths lead to the final result, even if it appears to be, at first glance, a step in the wrong direction. So the spiritual seeker's path is equally as valid in terms of a spiritual path as the rapist and the murderer and the thug and all that stuff. Now, certainly, I would recommend one course of action over another, and I would observe one to be out of alignment with Source and one out of alignment with divinity. Uh, so when I speak like this, I always want to make it very clear that when I speak in terms of the quality of the paths, of all paths, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm endorsing a path of murder and rape and death and destruction and all that sort of jazz. Um, what I'm doing is trying to get people out of judgment, and helping them to realize that everybody's going to get to the same place anyway. So realistically, if you want to take the path of death and destruction and chaos and or rape and murder and all that sort of stuff, you can. There's no higher power that is going to judge you and condemn you and send you to hell to burn for all eternity. But that doesn't change the fact that there are consequences to those actions. And those consequences of those actions are to hopefully move you into a path that is in more alignment with who you really are, or to help you reach rock bottom so that you can pull yourself up and become more into alignment. It's kind of like stretching a rubber band. You go too far in one direction, and hopefully you'll snap back into the original position. Now, the difference between a divine rubber band and a human rubber band is that the human rubber band will eventually break. The divine rubber band never does, because this is not a game that we can fail at. This is not something that we can really screw up. I was going to use the F word there, but I won't. So in terms of staying in alignment, what it allows you to do is just make for a much smoother ride. You will get where you're going. Everybody does. That is kind of the point. This is not a game you can fail at, as I just said. Um, so if your wheels are out of alignment in your car as you're driving, uh, you'll notice that if you take your hands off the steering wheel, the car might pull to the right or to the left, and then you have to fight your car in order to keep the car moving straight. Um, and that, because of your wheels being out of alignment, but you trying to drive straight, it is going to cause resistance, and it's going to wear down your tires, costing you a lot more in the long run. So when I talk about being in alignment with Source, and that my only real goal in life, personally, is to stay in alignment with Source as much as I can, and then just in terms of spirit, to be of service to humanity. Um, Really, what I'm saying is that I just want to make my ride as easy as possible. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to take wrong turns. That doesn't. Your alignment has absolutely nothing to do with the roads that you take. It has nothing to do with whether there will be potholes on the road. It doesn't have anything to do with you taking the wrong turn and going the wrong way for a while. It just means that your wheels are in alignment and that your ride is smoother. So, my goal is to always keep in mind, and part of the way that I stay out of judgment of other people, and just, I can observe other people and say, well, your wheels are out of alignment. It's not a judgment on the person. That's, if I look at a rapist and I say, you're moving your actions are not in alignment with Source, then, that is not a judgment of the person. That's simply an observation of his or her actions. And as someone who has a very clear idea of who I am, as when you gain that clarity, you know who everybody else is because they are you. You are them. And there's no separation between the two of you. So you see other people with the light of divinity, and you see the divinity in them. And so when you look at them, you say, well, you're not in alignment with Source, but that doesn't mean I'm judging. That means I hold you in light and compassion and help guide you on your way while I honor your path. And at the same time, I hold you accountable for your actions. So it's not about saying, well, he's a rapist and that's his path. The path is to help them see that they are the light, that they have divinity within them, and to dishonor the physical incarnation of somebody else is not in alignment, and it is a violation of the other person's free will to impose your will upon somebody else. So it is not a loving act. It is an act based out of the ego to try and control or to try and dominate somebody else. So it's, on the surface, staying in alignment is very easy. You just choose the most loving act. But, as with anything, you dig deep and it starts to get a little bit more complicated. There's many, many layers to it. But that doesn't mean that's something that we can't always strive for. And I'm not always in alignment. Believe me, I have 2 children, and I will say this repeatedly. I do yell at my kids from time to time. I am impatient with my kids from time to time. There are times when it's just fun to be in the ego. It's fun to just make a snarky comment because it's hilarious. That is an ego thing. When you're being sarcastic and when you're being snarky, that is an ego thing. That is not a divine thing. The divine essence, doesn't really have any need for sarcasm. But the ego loves sarcasm. So, there's nothing wrong with any of this. This is one of the things that you learn as you become aware of your true nature, is that there is no judgment in God's universe. There's nothing wrong with any of it. You can't say that the bird is right and the fish is wrong, or that the red bird is right and the blue bird is wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's just things are different, and there's a diversity within creation that is a part of its nature. Um, so you honor and respect other people, and you don't see them as lesser or greater than you. Now, that being said, I recognize that there are some really great teachers throughout history, um, many of whom their teachings have been greatly distorted, but I still honor their teachings. I honor the teachings of Buddha and Krishna, and if I knew more about it, I would probably endorse the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad as well. But I don't know enough about Islam and the Prophet Muhammad to say much. Um, I honor the teachings of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita as well, although even those have been twisted, especially because of the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, where from one perspective, it looks like it endorses war and killing and all that sort of stuff. Um, but in terms of my own life and staying in alignment, it's a moment by moment thing, and you have to know that you're in alignment when uh, you fall out of alignment. Again, getting back to the car example, it's like when your car is in perfect alignment, you don't notice it. But when you fall out of alignment because you hit a pothole or whatever, you go, oh, wait, my car is out of alignment, it's drifting to the left, and I'm fighting the car, so I better get back into alignment. So I got to take it into the shop and get it fixed. So just being aware and understanding that as a part of who you are existing within a dualistic universe, that there's always the opposites, that you're going to know one thing by knowing its opposite. So you know when you're in alignment by falling out of alignment. And there's nothing wrong with that. The key is to make sure that when you fall out of alignment, you're not doing a lot of damage to other people. As a result, you have to honor their path as well. Uh, but if you want to take it one step further and think about a society that is based around being in alignment with Source. One of the things that I realize is that the ego is not just in opposition to Source, it's actually the absence of Source. It is Source dialed down to zero, uh, really, because it believes in fear and separation and superiority and control and resistance and all these things which really block the flow of the divine energy into our lives. You think about what an enlightened society would look like, and you think about what it would be like for society to be based around love instead of ego. And so let's look at something like somebody who, let's say, is a rapist or a murderer or somebody who has caused a great deal of damage that's not in alignment with Source. Now, in an egoically based society, what we want to do is we want to punish that person, we want to condemn them, we want to judge them, and we want to tell them that they're bad and make them pay for their actions and all this sort of stuff. That is entirely egoically based and trying to prove that we are superior to them because they raped and murdered and killed and did all that sort of stuff that we frown upon. So in an enlightened society, my speculation, of course, this is my speculation because we don't live in an enlightened society right now, that person is still held accountable. That person is still thrown in jail because they have caused damage in our society. They have ended the physical incarnation or interfered with the physical incarnation by way of sexual assault without the consent of the other physical incarnation. So they've either killed somebody or raped somebody or done some sort of damage like that. And So they are removed from society because they're a damage to society. That they are in conflict with the society that we are trying to build as an enlightened society. Right now, in that removal, it's simply an observation of their actions and said what you have done is not in alignment. So how do we correct this? Do we throw them in prison for 60 years with no possibility of parole? No. The goal is to always hold somebody in love and compassion and honor their divinity and to help them on their journey and to remind them of who they really are. So then it becomes, instead of judging and condemning somebody and saying you're evil and you're wrong for what you've done, is to say, you've been removed from society until we can help you to heal. Because it's very true that hurt people. And we have to get to the root cause of that and say, what has caused you to be hurt so badly that you had to harm another person in order to try and heal it? What, sexual assault and rape is typically done from the ego. It's based in fear and separation and superiority or control or judgment or condemnation or any of that stuff that is egoically based. So you say, what has happened in your life that has caused this action? Now, we as an enlightened society are not going to judge or condemn you. We're not going to fear you. We're not going to see you as separate from us. We're not going to see you as inferior or superior or broken. But we will seek first to understand and then to be understood. To say, okay, you know what has happened? Tell me about your life. Tell me about what has caused you to come to this place. Why do you feel it's necessary to inflict your desire for control on another person with their own free will, and damage that person and damage their free will, or remove their free will in the case of killing somebody, and to see them with compassion and to understand, there's any number of factors that could lead somebody to that result, where they would feel that their only option was to kill somebody or to rape somebody or to harm them in some way. And they may just say, you know what, you're a bunch of effing losers, and I killed that person because I wanted to kill them. I wanted to see them die. There's nothing beyond that. Screw you. Stop talking to me. Or they might just not talk at all. They might just, be in their own mind, in their own head, and they might not want to talk about why they did it. They did it because they have their reasons and they don't want to discuss them. So, in that case, you simply say, okay, well, we are here for you. We'll hold you in love and compassion, and we'll, feed you and make sure that you're well taken care of, and we'll show you kindness even when you feel you don't deserve it. Because you are light, you are love, you are divinity, and you've allowed the darkness to take over. You've allowed the ego to control you, and that is not beneficial to the society that we want. Now, you are welcome to leave this establishment at any time, provided we can be assured that you are not going to damage anybody else in society. So there's a reformation process, a reforming process, to try and take somebody who has fallen into darkness, who has fallen into the ego, who has allowed himself or herself to be a damage to society, and to simply just not care, or for whatever reason that they might have, to be in that state where damaging another person is okay. And condemnation and judgment and fear and separation never opens hearts. It never heals. It cannot. It is in opposition to that. So what an enlightened society would do is simply to hold that person in love and compassion and kindness and treat them well. And you'll notice that even the most hate-filled people, eventually, if they come around, they will say, you know what, you showed me kindness even when I didn't deserve it. You showed me compassion even when I didn't deserve it. And I realized that these people that I hated, these people that I condemned, these people that I judged, and these people that I killed and hurt or scapegoated or whatever, I realized that they did nothing wrong. And it was all me. It was all my projection. And that's the state that we want to get people into, and to give them the chance to understand who they are and understand their light, and so that they can move into alignment with light and source and create as America likes to say in their Constitution, a more perfect union. Because it is so important that as a society we start moving as we start moving towards a more enlightened society, we have to figure out ways for us to stay into alignment. Because a lot of the systems and a lot of the institutions that we have in place right now are based out of the ego. They're based in fear and judgment and separation and condemnation and again, resistance and control and all that sort of stuff. And we need to move those institutions into a profoundly loving state. That, again, you'll notice that in my example of rapists and murderers and stuff, they're still removed from society because of the damage that they cause. But they are always given the opportunity to learn and heal and grow. And that is the process, is not to judge and condemn and do things based out of the ego and fear, but to help heal. But healing has to be done by the person who is hurt. I can't heal somebody for them. They have to be willing. They have to be open to it. Even, let's take the example of physical healing. Even somebody who was a great physical healer like Jesus would not heal somebody unless they were open to it. You wouldn't just interfere with somebody else's free will and heal them whether they wanted to or not. First off, I don't know if it would actually work, because a large part of what we do is our own free will and our own openness. So, if Jesus tried to, and somebody was like, no, I don't want a healing. No, don't give me a healing. I'm not going to, I like to suffer, and this is my role in life, and I like my leprosy or whatever it is. And he would just say, all right, cool. But if he tried, I don't know how effective it would be. I think that's one of the reasons why, when Jesus healed somebody, he would say, now go forth and tell no one, was because other people would cause doubt in your mind and say, oh, well, he was just playing a trick on you. And the healing wasn't really healing. And with that doubt causes the healing to be undone because of your own disbelief in it. So, being in alignment is extremely important. It doesn't mean that you can't create your societies out of alignment with Source. You still get where you're going, but the road is a lot harder. The road is a lot trickier. And when we are in alignment, the road is smoother. The driving is smoother. So it's much easier for us to get where we're going, to return to love. And hopefully through that, as more and more of us move into alignment with Source, we start to dismantle some of these institutions that are based in the ego and say, like, how can we look at people with love and compassion, especially those who are different than us, especially those who appear at first to be out of alignment with Source. Again, all roads lead to Rome. So, they'll get there eventually. It's our goal to nurture and support them, and to help them in whatever way we can. As Conversations with God lovingly points out, you can measure a society by how it treats the least of its members. People who rape and murder and do things that we would not consider to be um, in alignment with our society. They are to be held in love and compassion, not in judgment and condemnation. But anyway, that's enough for now, and